Welcome to the EconoGraf, a new color-coded graphic model of the Australian economy. It uses graphic shapes and colors to explain the major components and interactions of the economy from a unique graphic perspective. The household, in the center, works for the first firm, shown by the pink arrow, and receives income as a green wages arrow. The second firm supplies products shown by the blue arrow and receives payment as a green arrow by return. This indicates the household's dual function as part of the circular flow in the private sector. These diagrams show a cross-section view of the graphic private sector at the top with the white gaps depicting the activated retail and wholesale markets. In the plan view at the bottom, the households are displayed on the periphery and the firms are on the inside in two tones. The retail sector is in aqua, and the non-retail private sector is in dark blue, representing manufacturing, agriculture services, private health and education, etc. Accordingly, there are two sets of markets, retail markets on the outer and non-retail on the inner white rectangle. In this illustration, we focus on the retail private sector where the householder is shown shopping. The blue arrow for products and the green arrows for payment represent the retail transactions. This continuous gap between households and firms is the retail market conduct where transactions take place and economic flows circulate. In this illustration, the EconoGraf highlights the non-retail private sector and the labor markets. A householder is shown working in the construction industry, which is part of the non-retail private sector. His work is illustrated by the gray arrow and the corresponding wages by the green arrow. This sector includes industries like construction, agriculture, imports, exports, manufacturing, private health, and university education. It supplies goods and services to households in the retail sector and interacts with the external economy. The white border around the dark blue area represents some of these non-retail markets and their transactions. Here we enlarge the non-retail private sector to show most of the types of industry and commerce that are contained within it. The services component sits in the middle of the shape as it is the common aspect of most commercial activities. Almost all firms provide services to other firms and some to households, while many others receive services as part of their expenses. The EconoGraf illustrates two-way trade between China and Australia. Australia exports iron ore to China and imports electric vehicles. The imported BYD cars arrive in Australia at the imports interface on the lower left corner. From there, they are transported to the importer's warehouse in the non-retail sector with payments leaving as green arrows from the imports interface. Now let's take a look at exports at the other end. Iron ore exports are shown leaving the exporter's premises and arriving at the export interface, lower right corner. They leave Australia as khaki arrows, with payments returning to Australia as green arrows. Australia's current account. These graphics illustrate Australia's current account, which reflects the balance between gross imports and net exports. Payments for imports are depicted leaving the bank and traveling along the market conduit to the imports interface, lower left corner. The mauve bar chart highlights the growth in imports over the past 3 years. Receipts from exports move from right to left, entering the bank as green arrows. The khaki bar chart captures muted export growth over the same period. At the bottom, the merged bar charts reveal a shift in Australia's current account, transitioning from a surplus to a $10.7 billion deficit. These not-to-scale graphic statistics provide an overview of the public sector, illustrating its fiscal and monetary framework. Foreign exchange reserves are depicted in olive green, overlapping the gold reserves shown in yellow. On the lower left, taxation revenues are displayed in grey, with the Treasury centrally positioned to receive these revenues. The Reserve Bank of Australia, RBA, is represented in purple, while the Treasury shows the light brown expenditure, which is shown on the lower right side below the pink national debt. In the plan view below, Olive green assets overlap the taxation revenues, with the RBA at the center of these olive green assets and the pink national debt. These graphs show the two-tone public sector above the private sector, detailing the fiscal format of the Australian budget forecast. The taxation revenues are shown in grey on the left-hand side, with the Treasury in the centre receiving these taxation revenues. Light brown expenditures are shown leaving the Treasury and travelling back to the private sector at the top right-hand interface. The forecast expenditure of $688 billion will be increased by $87 billion, making an actual expenditure of $775 billion. This amount exceeds taxation revenues of $673 billion, creating a forecast deficit of $102 billion for 2024-25. The graphs create the monetary economy in a static context at the end of the financial year. They outline the three different financial flows of the economy. A. Capital inflow and outflow through the financial markets. B. New money flowing to the Treasury in exchange for new bonds. C. Bonds and money to and from the private banks. The graphics also display the assets and liabilities, both public and private, on a graphic balance sheet basis. This illustration breaks down the Australian balance of payments, BOP, which includes the current account, capital account, and financial account. It demonstrates how capital inflows, green arrows, and outflows, mauve arrows, are required to balance each other to maintain foreign exchange reserves and currency stability. Liquid public assets are shown in light green, while bonds are displayed as a much larger component on the right-hand side. Private assets are shown similarly in light green, while mortgages and liabilities are displayed in pink. The basic balance focuses on sustainable long-term flows, ensuring inflows match outflows annually. Private capital flows dominate, while official flows provide stabilization. Large financial movements can disrupt markets, often requiring central bank intervention to restore balance. In essence, the BOP is a comprehensive framework for tracking all international transactions monthly, while the basic balance focuses on Australia's long-term economic situation. The modern market economy is complex, but the EconoGraf explains it using color-coded shapes to visually represent key economic concepts. By using microeconomic graphics of the households and businesses within the private sector, the model illustrates the flow of products, services, payments, and wages. The video explores trade flows, imports and exports, the current account, and fiscal policy. It also highlights how central bank actions influence the monetary system and balance of payments. Developed over many years, the EconoGraf is a unique visual economic model. It transforms complex ideas into clear, engaging graphics, offering a fresh, memorable way to understand foundational economic concepts. About. Born in Sydney in 1942, Graham Edward Hull is a man whose intellectual creativity and entrepreneurial spirit have driven his diverse career. After graduating in economics from Macquarie University, Graham joined the Western Australian government, where he created feasibility studies for various industries. Together with his new wife Beverly, Graham went on to manage and invest in several successful enterprises, showcasing his natural talent for business and originality. But it was later, through their office design and fit-out business, that Graham's passion for visual communication and design. Using PowerPoint, Graham developed what would eventually become the EconoGraf, a revolutionary graphical model of the market economy. Graham began rigorous studies in accounting, international economics, and finance, to deepen his understanding of the underlying commercial principles. Now, Graham submits the EconoGraf video for consideration and invites expressions of interest from the academic and business communities to take this revolutionary tool to the next level.